The ocean had always been a place of mystery for humanity, but in the year 2387, curiosity had reached depths never imagined before. Dr. Alara Miles, a brilliant marine archaeologist, peered through the reinforced glass of the submersible Aegis. As it cut silently through the ink-dark waters of the Pacific Ocean, the pressure outside was crushing. Yet the vessel moved with a grace that belied its massive armored hull. Around them, faint bioluminescent shapes flickered like tiny stars. Giving the impression of descending into a different world, Ilara adjusted her headset and glanced at the glowing console in front of her. Sensors are stable. No abnormal currents yet. Depth is 3,000 meters, descending further, she said, her voice calm but edged with excitement. The crew around her mirrored her tension, though their own voices were steadier than they felt. They had trained for this mission for years. Nothing could prepare them for what lay ahead. Lieutenant Rios, a tall man with sharp eyes, leaned over a console, tapping a sequence of commands. The trench is deeper than our map suggested. Sonar readings are showing large metallic structures embedded in the ocean floor. His voice was steady, but his fingers betrayed slight tremors. These shapes, they aren't natural formations. Lara felt her pulse quicken. She had hoped to discover signs of ancient human civilizations buried beneath the waves. Maybe some lost city or forgotten vessel. What Rios was describing sounded different-talian, almost impossible. "Keep the cameras running," she said. "I want to see everything as we approach." The submersible glided forward, its lights cutting narrow paths through the darkness. The sonar display flickered with irregular shapes, vast and silent. Ilara leaned closer, squinting at the screen. "Look at the scale. These are massive. Much larger than any human ship ever built," she whispered, a mixture of awe and disbelief in her tone. As they descended deeper, the shapes began to take form. One in particular dominated the view. It was a massive hull, resting partially buried in sand and rock. Its surface shimmered faintly in the submersible's lights, with strange patterns that seemed to pulse slowly, like a heartbeat frozen in time. Ilara felt a chill, though the water around them was silent and still. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Chen, the team's engineer, his voice filled with wonder. "The construction. It's not human. None of our designs have curves like this. It's organic almost, yet metal." Rios frowned. "If this is alien, it must be incredibly old. The corrosion alone suggests centuries, maybe millennia." Ilara nodded, gripping the edge of her seat. "Prepare the manipulator arms. We'll start with a careful probe. No sudden movements." Her mind raced. This was not just a discovery. It was a window into a civilization long lost, possibly a species that had visited Earth before humans even existed. The manipulator arm extended slowly, its cameras transmitting real-time images back to the control screens. As the claw touched the surface, the metal felt strangely smooth under the sensors. Tiny grooves glowed faintly, as if reacting to the presence of the submersible. Ilara leaned forward, holding her breath. "It's alive. In some way, not alive like we are, but responsive." Suddenly, the trench shuddered. The submersible rocked violently, alarms blaring in the confined space. Rocks and sand cascaded down from the trench walls, and a cloud of sediment enveloped them. Rios slammed a hand down on a control panel, stabilizing the vessel. "That was close," he muttered. "The trench isn't stable. We need to be careful." Ilara's heart pounded. "No, we stay. We can't turn back now." She glanced at her crew, their faces pale but determined. "We have to understand what this is, carefully." As the submersible steadied, the glow from the hull intensified. A faint hum, almost imperceptible, filled the water around them. Ilara frowned. Did anyone else hear that? Chen shook his head. I think it's coming from the ship itself." Lara's mind raced. The idea that a ship could emit energy after centuries underwater seemed impossible, yet the sensors confirmed it. The hum pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "It's waiting," she whispered. "This ship. It's not just a relic. It's a memory of something alive." Hours passed as the Aegis probed the hull. The crew documented every detail, intricate patterns etched into the metal. Chambers barely visible beneath layers of silt, corridors that hinted at a vast interior. The deeper they explored, the more Alara realized that this was not a single ship, which was part of a fleet. Each hull massive, each structure unique, the trench seemed to be a graveyard of ancient vessels. Resting in silence beneath the ocean, at one point, the submersible's lights revealed a faint symbol carved into the hull. Alara leaned closer. It was unlike any human writing, with flowing lines and geometric patterns that seemed purposeful. "This is a language," she murmured. "Or a code. Something meant to be remembered." Rios shivered. "Imagine who built this. And why? What happened to them? Why did they leave their ships here?" Alara looked out at the vast shadows of the trench, her mind spinning. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, they had evidence that they were not, but these visitors were long gone, leaving only echoes of their existence behind. The tension in the submersible grew as they moved closer to another hull. It was larger than the first, partially collapsed, yet traces of its former majesty were clear. Alara instructed the manipulator arms to enter a small opening. Cameras streamed inside, revealing flooded corridors lined with strange glowing veins that ran along the walls. It was eerie, almost cathedral-like, yet peaceful. Time had left it untouched, as if the ship had waited for centuries for someone to arrive. Suddenly, sharp tremor shook the submersible again. The walls of the trench shifted slightly, and sand cascaded into the corridors of the hull. Alara gritted her teeth. "The ocean. It doesn't want us here," she said. "But we must be careful, and we must continue. This is bigger than any of us." Hours blurred into a tense exploration. The team found signs of technology far beyond human understanding. Chambers filled with dormant machinery, panels that reacted faintly to their touch, and corridors that hinted at vast spaces for living, research, and travel. Alara realized that these ships had once carried life across the stars, long before humans had dreamed of leaving Earth. As the mission drew to a temporary halt, the Aegis hovered near the first hull. Alara took a deep breath, staring at the silent giant resting on the ocean floor. "We've only just begun," she said. "These ships, they are a record of the past, but they might also be a guide for the future. We need to understand them, to learn from them, and to remember that the universe is bigger than we can imagine." The crew exchanged silent nods, each feeling the weight of what they had discovered. Humanity had taken a bold step into the unknown, encountering echoes of a civilization that had traveled the stars. The ocean held these silent watchers, and for the first time, humans realized that the story of life in the universe was far older and more complex than they had ever imagined. As the submersible began its ascent to the surface, Alara allowed herself a moment of quiet wonder. The trench below stretched endlessly, filled with the silent hulls of alien ships, resting in the depths of ancient oceans. Somewhere in the darkness, their creators had left traces of their existence. Waiting for a curious species brave enough to find them, Alara whispered to herself, almost as if the ocean could hear her. "We are not alone." And perhaps we never truly were. Above, the surface of the ocean rippled under the setting sun, peaceful and calm. Yet beneath, in the depths, the silent hulls waited, keeping their secrets for those willing to listen, and for humanity, this was only the beginning. The submersible Aegis rested gently on the ocean floor, its lights casting long, wavering beams across the massive alien hull. Dr. Alara Miles leaned forward in her seat, eyes fixed on the dark, glimmering surface outside. The first hull had revealed so much already, shapes that defied human engineering. Its glowing veins etched into smooth metal, corridors that stretched into darkness. But what lay inside would test their courage and ingenuity, more than any ocean trench ever could. Lieutenant Rios tapped the console. "The hull appears stable. No movement detected from the trench walls. We can attempt entry through this opening," he said, pointing to a narrow archway partially blocked by rock and sediment. The manipulator arms reached carefully, brushing away debris. Slowly, the path cleared, revealing a faint interior passage. Shimmering with faint energy pulses, "Prepare the cameras and lights," Alara ordered. We go in cautiously. Nothing triggers without our control. Dr. Chen, the engineer, guided the submersible forward. Inside, the corridors were impossibly smooth, yet alive with subtle energy that flickered beneath the walls like distant lightning. The hum they had first detected grew stronger here, resonating through the vessel as if responding to their presence. "This is incredible," Chen whispered. "The design, it's not just functional, it's beautiful. There is purpose and artistry in every curve." Alara nodded, feeling the truth of those words deep in her chest. She had expected ancient alien technology to be utilitarian, harsh, and efficient. Instead, this was something else entirely. These ships had been built not only for travel but for expression, as if the Thaler the name Alara gave them valued not just survival, but beauty. The first chamber they reached was enormous, even though it had been partially flooded. Rows of consoles lined the walls, their surfaces smooth, and some flickered faintly with symbols Alara did not recognize. She reached for the control panel closest to the submersible's manipulators. Her fingers brushed the surface, and for a moment, a holographic projection sprang to life. Alara froze. The hologram was a three-dimensional map of stars, many of which humans had never observed. Faint lines connected distant worlds, tracing paths that seemed to cross the galaxy itself. These are star maps," she murmured, voice trembling. "They traveled farther than we could imagine." Riaz leaned over her shoulder, studying the projection. "These are not just maps. They are records. Logs of where they went, what they discovered, maybe even where they settled. This civilization, they were explorers." Chen stepped back, awed. "And we're looking at ships that have been resting here for centuries, maybe millennia. Imagine what else is down here." Lara's thoughts raced. Humanity had long wondered if life existed beyond Earth. Here, beneath the ocean, they had found proof, not of a distant planet, but of a civilization that had actually been here. The realization filled her with awe, but also a heavy sense of responsibility. The team moved deeper into the ship, cameras capturing every detail. They found chambers that seemed designed for living, yet the layout was unlike any human habitation. Spaces flowed seamlessly into one another with walls that curved gently, hallways that spiraled in patterns that seemed almost artistic. The air was heavy with the silence of ages. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught Alara's eye. She directed the submersible toward it and found a chamber filled with delicate crystalline structures. The crystals pulsed faintly, as if they were storing energy or information. "It's a memory core," she said quietly. Realizing that these might contain knowledge far beyond human technology, Rios frowned. "If these cores are still functional, even partially, we could access the history of an entire species." Alara nodded. "Careful. We don't know how they respond to stimuli. We cannot risk damaging them." The submersible's manipulator gently touched one of the crystals, and a soft glow spread across the chamber. A projection appeared, showing beings unlike anything humans had seen. Tall, slender, with elongated limbs and luminous eyes. The Thaler, as Alara called them, moved with grace and intelligence. Interacting with technology that was both advanced and elegant. "These were not warriors," Alara said softly, studying the projection. "They were thinkers, explorers, scientists. They traveled to understand, not to conquer." The realization struck her. Humanity, still young and fragile, had much to learn from these beings. And yet, despite their knowledge and technology, the Thaler were gone, leaving only these silent holes as witnesses to their existence. As they explored further, the submersible sensors picked up unusual readings from a narrow corridor. Rio suggested sending the manipulator arm ahead. The camera feed revealed a large, collapsed section of the corridor, partially blocking access to another chamber. Sand and silt shifted as the submersible approached, and for a tense moment, it seemed as if the corridor itself was alive. Reacting to their presence, Iliar's hands tightened on the console. "Move slowly. We cannot risk destabilizing the hull." Every movement could trigger a collapse. The submersible inched forward. As it reached the collapsed section, something extraordinary happened. The sand shifted, not due to the current or the submersible, but seemingly by design. A faint glow emerged from beneath the debris, forming an opening just large enough for the manipulators to pass through. Chun's eyes widened. It's like the ship is guiding us. Like it knows we're here. Lara nodded, a mixture of awe and unease settling in her chest. These ships are not just vessels. They're records, guardians of knowledge. And now, they've acknowledged our presence. The team paused at the threshold of the next chamber, feeling a strange sense of reverence. Inside, the space was filled with massive circular devices, almost like engines, though their function remained a mystery. Holographic symbols floated in the water, seemingly suspended in midair, displaying data and patterns humans could barely comprehend. This is incredible, Rios whispered. The technology here, it's beyond anything humanity has imagined. And yet, it's not destructive. It's meant to observe, to record, to preserve knowledge. Ilara felt a profound sense of humility. Humanity had achieved much, but these halls were proof that intelligence could rise, explore and leave a legacy without destruction. She thought of the countless species that had struggled and fallen in the universe, and she realized that the Thaler had chosen a path of preservation, not dominance. Hours passed as the team documented the chamber, taking care not to disturb the delicate structures. Each discovery added to the growing picture of the Thaler civilization explorers who valued knowledge, art, and life itself. Ilara knew that this was a turning point for humanity. If they could learn from these silent witnesses, perhaps humans could rise to meet the challenges of the stars. Suddenly, a tremor shook the trench again. Small rocks fell from the ceiling of the chamber, but the submersible remained stable. Ilara's heart raced. The ocean. It's reminding us we are intruders here. Respect always, Rios nodded. We should document and retreat for now. There's much more to explore, but we need to proceed carefully. As the Aegis began to slowly back out of the chamber, Ilara allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection. The ship had been silent for centuries, yet it now shared its story with humanity. And though the Thaler themselves were gone, their legacy remained alive in these hulls resting in the depths, looking out at the endless black of the ocean. Ilara whispered, almost to herself. They waited for someone to find them. And perhaps that someone is us. The submersible began its ascent, carrying with it the first records of a civilization older, wiser, and more wondrous than humanity had ever known. The hulls below remained silent, but they were no longer forgotten. Humanity had begun a journey into the past, and the future of exploration had just begun. Above the trench, the waves of the Pacific moved gently, oblivious to the wonders resting beneath. But below, the silent hulls waited, patiently holding the memory of a civilization that had once reached for the stars, and now offered humanity a glimpse of what was possible. The submersible Aegis hovered silently above the ocean floor, its lights cutting through the darkness. Dr. Ilara Miles stared at the massive alien hull before them. It had been centuries, perhaps millennia, since any life had touched this vessel. Yet now, for the first time, it seemed almost aware of their presence. The faint hum that had first drawn them deeper into the trench was growing stronger. Resonating through the hull like a slow, deliberate heartbeat, Lieutenant Rios broke the silence. The sensors are picking up energy readings from inside the ship. They're stronger than anything we've measured so far. Could it be? Power still running? His voice carried a mixture of excitement and caution. Ilara nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing patterns on the hull. It's more than power. The ship is responding. We've activated something, even without knowing it. She took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. Prepare to enter again. Slowly, carefully. We need to see what the ship wants to show us. The Aegis glided forward, entering the familiar archway that led to the corridors they had begun exploring. This time, the interior felt different. The walls pulsed faintly beneath their lights, almost like breathing. The air within the submersible vibrated with the energy of the dormant systems coming to life. Even the silence seemed filled with anticipation. Chen adjusted the lighting, revealing a large chamber ahead. The manipulators extended, pushing away debris that had shifted since their last visit. As the path cleared, the crew gasped. Before them, a massive console rose from the floor like an altar. Strange symbols flickered across its surface, forming patterns that seemed to communicate, though in a language no human could yet understand. Alara leaned forward. This is a control center, and it's alive in some way. It wants us to interact. She hesitated for a moment, then extended a gloved hand toward the panel. The moment her fingers brushed the smooth surface, a holographic projection erupted around them. Bathing the chamber in a soft blue light, the crew froze as images of the Thaler appeared tall, elegant beings with luminous eyes and elongated limbs. They moved gracefully through starships, over alien worlds, and across strange landscapes. Ilara could see cities built in harmony with nature, vast research stations on distant moons, and fleets of vessels traveling through the void between stars. They weren't just travelers, Ilara whispered. They were explorers, scientists, keepers of knowledge. She felt a surge of wonder. Humanity had searched the skies for evidence of other civilizations, but here, beneath the waves, they found proof that a species had mastered the stars long before humans dreamed of leaving Earth. Rios studied the holograms, his eyes wide with amazement. And now, we can learn from them. Every journey, every world, every discovery, it's recorded here. He paused, his expression turning serious. But why leave it all here? Why bury themselves beneath the ocean? Ilara shook her head. Perhaps they foresaw a danger. Perhaps they knew their time would end and wanted to preserve their legacy. These ships, they are monuments, but also warnings. She gestured at the glowing console. We need to understand what message they left for whoever finds it. As the submersible moved further into the chamber, another projection appeared, a series of symbols forming a star map. Lines connected worlds across the galaxy, some marked with symbols that glowed more brightly. Chen pointed at one of the clusters. These might be their home systems, or planets they visited. Some of these stars are uncharted by humanity. Ilara felt a shiver of excitement. If we can decode these maps, we could find the traces of their civilization. Maybe even understand their science, their history, their culture. And perhaps we could learn how they avoided destruction where others failed. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the submersible. Small fragments of rock fell from the ceiling, and the hum intensified. Rios gripped the console. The ship. It's waking up. The energy. It's moving through the hull. Ilara's pulse quickened. We must be cautious. We don't know what could happen if we push too far. But we also can't turn back now. Humanity has a chance to learn from this. The Aegis moved deeper into the hull, entering a corridor that spiraled downward like a tunnel into the ship's heart. The walls glowed faintly, illuminating ancient scripts and symbols etched into the surface. The crew documented everything, careful not to disturb the delicate patterns. It was clear that these markings were not decorative, they were messages. Perhaps warnings or instructions left by the Thal or Dot at the end of the corridor. The team reached a massive chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness above. Central to the room was a device that pulsed with a soft blue light. When Ilara approached, the hum intensified, resonating in the submersible and through the hull itself. The device seemed to sense her presence, reacting to her touch without physical contact. Chen, run a scan, she instructed. Let's see what this device is. The engineer's fingers danced across the controls. Data streamed in, revealing patterns of energy, information storage, and systems far beyond human understanding. It's like a brain, Chen said slowly. Not organic. But it thinks, it remembers, it responds. The ship itself is conscious in some way. Ilara's eyes widened. It's a library, but alive. A repository of knowledge, history, and wisdom. The Thalar left not just their technology, but a record of their minds. Rios frowned. And if it's conscious, What happens if we make a mistake? Ilara considered this carefully. We proceed with respect. We observe, we record, we learn. Nothing more. These are guardians of their civilization's memory, not toys for experimentation as they interacted with the device. Holograms filled the chamber scenes of Thaler life, their struggles, their achievements. One projection showed a Thaler starship navigating a massive asteroid belt, collecting rare minerals for research. Another showed them communicating with distant species, trading knowledge and forming alliances. Ilara realized the Thalar had not only explored the galaxy, they had nurtured it. Suddenly, a new projection appeared, a scene of great danger. A massive cosmic storm threatened a planet, and Thaler ships raced to save colonies and life forms. Energy discharged, vessels maneuvered with precision, and lives were preserved. It became clear why the Thaler had left the ships in the ocean. They had faced catastrophes, and they had learned the value of preparation, preservation, and legacy. Ilara felt a deep connection to these beings, even across the gulf of time and space. They wanted someone to understand, she whispered. To carry forward their knowledge, perhaps? Humanity is the one they chose. Hours passed as the crew explored the chamber, carefully documenting each projection. Each image, each symbol, each piece of technology reinforced a singular truth. The Thaler had achieved greatness through curiosity, cooperation, and respect for life. Their ships were not weapons, they were vessels of knowledge, waiting for the right species to awaken them. As the Aegis prepared to retreat for the first time, the chamber pulsed once more, a soft wave of energy sweeping through the hull. Ilara felt it in her chest, a subtle reminder that they were guests in this ancient sanctuary. We must honor what we found, she said softly. This is not just discovery. This is responsibility. Rios nodded. We will. But I can't stop thinking. There's so much more down here. We've only scratched the surface. Ilara smiled faintly, her mind already racing ahead, and we will explore it carefully. But for now, we record, we analyze, and we understand. The Thaler waited for someone who could respect their legacy. That's our first step. As the submersible ascended from the depths of the hull, the hum of the ship faded, returning to a quiet rhythm. The trench lay silent once more, the massive hull resting as it had for centuries. But Ilara knew that something fundamental had changed. Humanity had made contact with the memory of a civilization that had mastered the stars, and a seed of inspiration had been planted. Above, the ocean shimmered under the light of distant stars. Below, in the depths, the silent hulls rested, but now they were not forgotten. Humanity had begun a dialogue with the past, and in that dialogue, the promise of the future shone bright. Ilara leaned back in her seat, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration in her mind. We've awakened the past, she said softly. And now, we must rise to meet it. The submersible Aegis moved cautiously through the trench, its light sweeping across the ocean floor. Dr. Ilara Miles stared out at the endless tears of metal resting beneath the waves. One hull had already revealed wonders beyond human imagination. But as they advanced, it became clear that the first ship was only the beginning. Dozens of massive vessels lay scattered across the trench, silent, vast, and waiting. Lieutenant Rios adjusted the sensors, scanning the area. Ilara, you were right. There are hundreds of hulls. Some are buried, some partially broken, but the scale, it's unbelievable. This is an entire fleet. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. A fleet. Resting beneath the ocean for centuries. Every ship, a story. Every hull, a record. We must document everything carefully. She paused, staring at the nearest vessel. Its surface was pitted and worn, but faint patterns glowed beneath the corrosion. These ships, they are alive in some way. Their memory is still here, waiting. Dr. Chen leaned over the console. If these ships are as old as they seem, the technology inside them must be unimaginable. And if the Thaler left a fleet like this, imagine the knowledge stored in each vessel. Humanity could learn more in a decade here than in centuries on Earth. Ilara nodded. But we must remember we are guests. We take nothing without understanding. Respect first, discovery second. That is what they intended for anyone who finds them. The Aegis moved closer to the largest hull in the fleet, partially buried in sand and silt. Its design was more intricate than the first they had explored, with sweeping curves and veins of energy that pulsed faintly. As the submersible approached, the hum that had been faint in the other hulls grew stronger, more resonant. The ship seemed aware of their presence, as if it recognized them. "This one feels different," Rios said quietly. "Stronger, almost like it has importance. Maybe the command ship." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps we'll proceed carefully." Right. They entered the hull through a large opening, and the submersible's lights revealed vast corridors stretching far beyond the visible area. The walls glimmered faintly, etched with symbols and scripts that pulsed in rhythm with the hum. The corridors opened into enormous chambers, each filled with alien devices and machinery that seemed to store vast amounts of information. Chen extended a manipulator arm to touch one of the consoles. Instantly, holographic projections erupted around them, filling the chamber with images of Thaler life. Ilara stepped closer, studying the scenes. The Thaler traveling to distant worlds, constructing cities in harmony with their environments, and recording knowledge in a way humans could barely comprehend. They valued knowledge. Above all else, Ilara whispered. Every world they visited, every species they encountered, they recorded it. They didn't conquer. They observed. They preserved. They were guardians of the galaxy. Rios frowned, studying the projections. And yet they left all this here. Beneath our oceans, they must have known their time would end. They wanted someone to find this knowledge, someone capable of understanding it. Ilara nodded. And now, that someone might be humanity. But we have to prove ourselves worthy. We can learn, yes, but we must respect the legacy they left. As the Aegis moved deeper, they found a chamber that pulsed with energy unlike anything they had seen. A large, circular device stood in the center, glowing with soft blue light. Symbols floated in the water, forming patterns that seemed to communicate without words. Chen scanned the device. It's a core, a central repository. It holds the knowledge of this vessel, and possibly more. The energy readings suggest it could power the hull for decades if activated, but it also reacts to presence. It's almost like it's alive. Lara felt a thrill of both excitement and caution. We don't activate it yet. We observe, we document, we understand. If this is conscious, it must be approached carefully. We don't want to destroy what we've found. The crew documented every detail, taking careful measurements and recording holographic projections. Each chamber they entered revealed more about the Thalar civilization, fleets navigating asteroid belts, peaceful exchanges with other species, research stations orbiting distant stars. Humanity had glimpsed only the surface of their knowledge, yet even that was enough to inspire awe. Hours passed as they moved from chamber to chamber. The fleet outside remained silent, but the hum of the central hull resonated through the trench. It was as if the fleet itself was connected, waiting for the right species to awaken it. Suddenly, a tremor shook the trench. Rocks and silt fell from the walls, and the submersible rocked violently. Ilara gripped the console, her heart racing. The ocean. It's reminding us again that we are intruders here. Move slowly. We must respect the environment. Rios adjusted the thrusters, stabilizing the vessel. It's not the ship. It's the trench itself. But you're right. We need to be careful. Ilara's mind raced. The discovery of this fleet was unprecedented. Humanity had explored space, landed on planets, and sent probes to distant stars. But nothing compared to this. An entire civilization's fleet resting beneath their own oceans, preserved and waiting. The lessons they could learn here could change humanity forever. Chen pointed to a distant corridor. Look at that. There's an opening in the wall much larger than the corridors we've explored. It seems almost ceremonial. Maybe a central chamber for the fleet. Ilara's pulse quickened. Then that is our next destination. Slowly, carefully, we need to understand the fleet as a whole. not just individual ships. Every hull is a part of their story. The Aegis approached the massive opening, its lights illuminating the vast chamber beyond. It was difficult to see the full scale. The ceiling and walls seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with dormant machinery and glowing veins of energy. The hum of the hull grew stronger, almost as if it welcomed them forward. Inside, the crew discovered the heart of the fleet, a massive control chamber with holographic projections showing the movements of vessels across the galaxy. Star systems connected by lines and symbols depicted journeys and exchanges. The history of exploration and the preservation of life. Ilara felt a profound sense of humility. This is beyond technology. This is a record of a civilization. Every vessel, every world, every act of preservation is here, the Thaler. They wanted their story to be remembered, and perhaps they wanted to inspire those who came after them. We have a responsibility. Humanity can learn from this. We can honor their legacy. But we must be careful. If we misuse this knowledge, it could be catastrophic. Lara smiled faintly. Then we proceed with caution, curiosity, and respect. That is the way forward. We learn, we preserve, and we rise to meet the universe as they did. Ours turned into days as the Aegis continued to explore the fleet. Each hole revealed new wonders, new records, and new lessons. The crew documented everything. Understanding that humanity's role was no longer just to explore it, was to carry forward the legacy of those who had come before, as they prepared to return to the surface. Ilara looked out at the endless array of holes stretching across the trench. We are witnessing history, and perhaps shaping the future. These ships, they waited for someone capable of understanding. Now, it is our turn. Above, the ocean remained calm, the waves oblivious to the fleet resting beneath. But beneath the surface, the silent holes waited, holding the memory of a civilization that had mastered the stars and preserved its knowledge for those willing to learn. Humanity had found the past, and in it, a guide for the future. Ilara's voice was soft, almost a whisper to herself. We are ready. To rise, to explore, and to honor the legacy of the Thalar. The submersible began its ascent, carrying with it the knowledge wonder, an inspiration of a civilization long gone but not forgotten. The fleet below remained silent, but the seed of humanity's future had been planted in the depths of ancient oceans. The submersible Aegis rose slowly through the trench, carrying Dr. Ilara Miles and her team back to the surface. Hours of exploration had passed, yet the memory of the hulls lingered in every corner of her mind. The vast fleet, resting silently beneath the ocean, held a story of a civilization that had achieved greatness without violence, a species that had mastered the stars and preserved their knowledge for those who could respect it. Ilara gazed out the reinforced glass at the dark water below. The glow of the holes had faded, replaced by the deep shadows of the trench, and yet she felt their presence as vividly as ever. The Thaler had left a legacy that demanded attention, care, and understanding. Humanity had been given a rare gift, the chance to learn from those who had come before. Lieutenant Rios adjusted the console, scanning the holes one last time. We've mapped the fleet, he said quietly. Every vessel, every chamber, every projection. There's enough information here to inspire generations. But it's more than technology. It's philosophy, culture, wisdom. They didn't just travel the stars, they recorded how to live among them responsibly. Ilara nodded, her thoughts racing. We need to take this knowledge to humanity carefully. Not just as technology, but as guidance. The Thaler didn't leave weapons or tools for conquest. They left lessons about curiosity, cooperation, and stewardship. Chen, the engineer, leaned back in his seat. It's overwhelming. The scale of their civilization, the care in their designs, it's beautiful. And it's humbling. Humanity is just beginning, yet we have the chance to rise, to build, to explore responsibly. We have to honor that. As the submersible broke the surface, sunlight reflected across the waves. Above, the ocean appeared calm, ordinary, yet beneath, Silent hulls rested like monuments to a long-lost civilization. The Aegis surfaced near the research station, and the team prepared to transmit their findings. The world would soon see evidence that humanity was not alone in the universe's history, that others had achieved greatness, and that a path forward existed if humans chose wisely. Ilara gathered her team. What we've found is beyond science or exploration. It's a message. The Thalor left these ships to inspire those who could understand and respect them. Our task now is to study, preserve, and share their knowledge responsibly. We are not just explorers. We are guardians of a legacy. Rios nodded, a quiet resolve in his eyes. We will. Humanity will not squander this. But we also have a choice. The universe is vast, and we are still young. We must decide how to use what we've learned wisely. Lara smiled faintly. That is the true lesson. Power alone is meaningless. Knowledge alone is not enough. Responsibility, respect, and courage, that is what the Thaler embodied, and that is what humanity must embrace. Over the following weeks, the team worked tirelessly to document every detail of the hulls, chambers, and the holographic projections. Each vessel added more pieces to the puzzle, maps of distant star systems, records of peaceful interactions with other species, strategies for exploration without destruction, and the Thalor philosophy of knowledge and preservation. Humanity began to see itself reflected in their work, not as conquerors, but as learners capable of rising to a greater purpose. One day, Lara and her team returned to the largest hull. They entered the central chamber, the same one where the core repository hummed softly. Alara extended her gloved hand, touching the surface of the device. A hologram erupted into life, displaying the history of the Thaler in vivid detail, their exploration of the galaxy, their achievements in science, their careful preservation of worlds and species, and finally, the decision to leave Earth as a resting place for their fleet. They chose Earth, Alara said quietly, not by chance, but because they believed someone here could learn, someone capable of rising to meet the universe responsibly. Rio studied the projection. And now, that someone is humanity. We've been given a chance to carry forward their knowledge, to become explorers, not destroyers, to preserve, not harm, and we must prove we are worthy. Lara nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility settle on her shoulders. We begin by sharing what we've learned, carefully, wisely, ethically. Humanity must rise to the challenge, inspired by the example of those who came before us. The team spent hours in the chamber, recording every projection, every pattern, every symbol. Slowly, they began to understand the depth of the Thaler's knowledge, methods for sustainable energy, designs for safe interstellar travel, strategies for coexistence with other species, and philosophies that emphasize curiosity, empathy, and courage. Every lesson seemed designed to guide a species just beginning to reach beyond its home world. Ilara realized that the greatest gift the Thaler had left was not technology, but inspiration. They teach us that greatness is not measured by power or conquest, but by the wisdom to explore responsibly and the courage to protect knowledge for the future. As they completed their work, a sense of peace filled the chamber. The hum of the hull resonated gently, as if acknowledging their understanding. The Thaler fleet, silent for millennia, had finally found the audience it had waited for. Humanity was beginning to rise to the challenge. Back on the surface, Lara addressed the world through the research station's communication array. Images of the hulls, the holographic projections, and the star maps were broadcast globally. The message was clear. Humanity was not alone in the universe's history, and the discovery of the Thaler fleet was a call to action. People of Earth, Ilara said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. We have witnessed the legacy of a civilization that traveled the stars, preserved life, and safeguarded knowledge. Their ships rest silently beneath our oceans, but their lessons are alive. Let us honor their memory by exploring responsibly, learning continuously, and protecting what is precious. This is our chance to rise as a species capable of greatness. Let us not squander it. Across the globe, humanity listened. Scientists, leaders, and citizens alike were awed by the discovery. The silent holes beneath the oceans became symbols of hope, inspiration, and responsibility. Humanity's ambition, tempered by wisdom and guided by the example of the Thalor, began to shift. Alara watched the sun set over the ocean, her thoughts returning to the fleet below. Each hull was a monument to exploration, curiosity, and the preservation of knowledge. Humanity had been given a rare opportunity to learn from the past, to carry forward the wisdom of a civilization that had mastered the stars, and to rise to its own potential. Rias stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Do you think we can live up to it?" he asked quietly. Alara smiled, hope shining in her eyes. "We must. We have the choice to honor what they left behind. Humanity is young, but we are capable of learning, of rising, and of achieving greatness. The silent halls have shown us the way. It is up to us to follow it." As the waves glimmered in the fading light, the ocean seemed to hold its breath, guarding the fleet below. The silent holes rested peacefully, no longer forgotten, their legacy embraced by a species ready to reach for the stars. Humanity had found not only the past, but a guide for its future. And beneath the depths, the Thaler fleet waited no longer in silence. Its watchers had awakened in the hearts and minds of humans. And in that awakening, the story of life in the universe continued brighter, wiser, and full of hope. Alara closed her eyes, feeling a deep connection to the ancient civilization and the future it had entrusted to humanity. "We will rise," she whispered. "We will explore, we will preserve, and we will honor their legacy." The ocean reflected the last rays of the sun, and the world knew that a new era had begun, one guided by curiosity, courage, and respect for all that came before. Humanity had discovered the silent holes, and in them, it had discovered its own potential. The past and the future converged beneath the waves, and the universe waited for humanity to step forward,